I'm Chris Gregg. I'm a senior manager of AML data engineering at BMO Financial Group. I've been leading this area for the last 5 years, and I have been using SAS for 10 plus years. So just like all of you, I am a SAS user, and I really want to go through this presentation to kind of teach you something, because I know sometimes some presentations, you may like, I don't know what I just learned. So this one is going to be someone that's built by you, and will dedicate and show you exactly my journey of using SAS and Copilot. So most of you probably saw Brian Harris's presentation today, and through this, you'll kind of get a better understanding of how you actually get the data put together and how you can use Copilot to enhance your code. So through my journey with using Copilot, these are 3 things that kind of came to me as being important for using the tool. The one thing is automation, and I'm going to be talking more in the AS feature, not really the agent feature. When I talk about automation, it's not really about how you make things automated. It's more of when you're using SAS, there's times when you need to bring in other tools to help automate code, and through Copilot, though you're really important on using SAS, sometimes you need to go and build something in Linux. And again, so you may not have all of the capabilities to do that, and using Copilot gives you a better understanding of how I can actually take this code to make my SAS even better. The other piece is modernization. When we have a lot of the things that we inherit, it's legacy code, it's someone that put together 10, 15 years ago, and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing with this code. I don't understand. I don't know why they decided to do and include mapping to 10 different applications. And you're like, Copilot, how can I understand what this is doing so I can make this better and more efficient? So what you can utilize with Copilot is you can kind of go look at your code, see, is there any redundancy that you want to go remove, and then also find ways to modernize the code. In my background, I am very heavily involved with SQL. So the one thing that we've been dealing with is we're trying to move all of our SQL, like your normal inner joins, left joins, is into using a with CTE, so that we have all these temporary tables that are used. And Copilot is one that you can use to help kind of enhance your PROC SQL. And then the one that's the most important, or one I think is the greatest part of Copilot, is error assistance. And I'm going to go in detail on a slide with this. But I don't know if anyone want to raise hands. How many used to use Stack Overflow to handle any issue that they had to deal with? Now you can use Copilot. You no longer have to research an article that was 15, 16 years ago on a version that you no longer use. You can now use Copilot, which will have your up-to-date versions and helps you handle any errors that you may have. So before we kind of dig into this, I want to get you an understanding of what I mean by SAS and Copilot. So when I'm talking about Copilot, it is not what built into SAS. It is actually either Microsoft 365, Visual Studio Code on Copilot, or any other tool that you may be using Copilot to kind of work within your day-to-day. So really what I want to think is you have SAS in one hand, and you have your Copilot in the other hand. And you're going to be using the AS feature to help figure out how you can enhance your code. So as you can kind of see on this slide right here, so this is where you have your code. The slide over, this is where you can choose your model. Depending on the type of Copilot using, you have different versions of the model you can use. The one that I prefer, and again, this is personal preference, is I like using the Claude. I feel like it gives me the most information to when I'm using Copilot. And lastly, or next part in, the last part is where we can ask your questions. I have this broken out, ask your questions, use context are kind of the same thing, but the one slide I was talking about here is really more about how you can ask a simple thing with Copilot. When you start to get more complex, this is where you start to use context. And what that means is you're bringing in not only your code, you're bringing in error logs, you're bringing in results, bringing in other like documentation, and you can join all of that together when you're asking your prompt within Copilot to get a more detailed information to what you're actually looking for. It really helps guide how Copilot's going to work. Now, how do we actually use Copilot in SAS? So again, you probably are all familiar with this preview code. So when you're using Enterprise Guide, this is the preview code for a table that you may be working with. But again, if you did not do any customization and you just put the code together, what are some pain points that you have when you look at this code? For me, I did not qualify anything, and I did not give it a nice table name. So the one thing SAS, in order to work, gives you a basic understanding of what the table is, but it usually starts with query for whatever table. Again, it's not very descriptive. Could Copilot help in that? We'll see next. The other one too is when you're using very simple code, SAS decides to put an alias. Again, an alias is nice, but for in this instance, an alias is not really necessary. And I really want you to imagine if this table was 100 and 200 columns. To try to remove that T1 is very painful. I know you can do it easily through a find and replace, but again, let's use Copilot to do that. And then this next one is really my personal preference. I don't know why, but I like to have my commas on the left. For me, having them on the right, it doesn't make sense. I don't like it. And I really like to have my commas on that side. So let's see what we can do with Copilot. So right now, I'm putting together a prompt. So what I have is we're going to clean up the SAS code. We want to give it we want to remove any of the table aliases. We want to make sure that we're doing proper SQL indentation. I know sometimes, depending on how a code, it's going to either add tabs or spaces, and this one will make sure that every column has a tab or a space, depending on your preference. The next is we're going to left align the columns, and we're going to give a descriptive table name, along with adding comments. And that's the one that is really important to me. I don't know why it is, but I start building code, and I just forget to add comments, and I need to have something that's going to do that for me, because after I'm going through thousands of lines of codes, I'm always trying to fix a problem, and I never go back and actually say why I needed to do this. You can have Copilot do that for you. So in this slide, so what you see on the left, this is what it was before. Again, I went a little above and beyond for this presentation, but this is actually what you can have it return. Not only does it give you why the table's there, it gives you a purpose. It gives you other basic understanding of notes and adds different things around where the table is coming from, why it's coming from, and other descriptive things. The one thing, again, I went a little overboard, but within the columns, and this is where when you're using the context, if you actually put in, you do a proc means on your table, you add it into your code, and you apply both at the same time, you can really have it where Copilot goes through, sees your data, and it gives you an understanding of how the code or the column actually is doing. And what it will do is it gives it kind of a basic description of each column. Again, I don't think everyone should do this because it's a little overkill, but it's something that you can do with Copilot. So now, how did I actually do that? What can Copilot do? The one thing I've learned through Copilot, it produces faster code. It produces more consistently providing you the same code that you always are dealing with. And it also is a way that you can kind of capture all of this information together. But in order to do this, we need to develop something called a prompt guide. Other people have other names for this, but really what this is going to be is it's going to be a guide that you refer to within your Copilot to say, these are the types of preferences I like to use. So for me, I like my commas on the left. I like to use PROC SQL. I'm not against data steps, but sometimes I would prefer my code this way. So I'll have the Copilot say when it's going through, always apply these preferences of what I'm actually using in my code. So I came up with this little chart that kind of shows you how you develop the prompt guide. The one thing, we're going to be using Copilot to create a prompt guide for Copilot. So what you do is you feed your first code that you have into the guide or into Copilot, and you ask, can you help to start building a style guide based off of the previous logic you've been working on? And so what Copilot is going to go through, it's going to go and say, well, it looks like he always likes different things with his SQL. This is how I want to apply when he's kind of dealing with the The SAS part, he likes using pass-through statements. So this is how I'm going to kind of apply all these characteristics to his style for when he's developing the code, which is going to make us produce that code faster and faster every time we adjust with it. And that's the next part where I just want to say we want to adjust. When you start dealing with Copilot, you're going to be a better coder. You're going to learn things that you never knew were possible. There's things that Copilot would say, like, maybe this is a better way that you can run it, or this is something that you should try to apply. So what the thing is, when you're building this guide, you want to make sure you're adjusting along the way and always improving how you can make Copilot better for you, and also not only for you, but also within your team. So that's where the next part is. I want to say, once you start building your guide, don't be afraid to share the information with you. And that's one of the reasons I'm here, is I am just like you. I develop code, but I want to share how we can actually use Copilot to our benefit instead of something that is going to be a detriment to what we're working through. It is a very nice assistant for building with our code. So I know the next slide is going to be a little heavy on words, but I wanted to actually provide you my actual style guide that I use in my day-to-day. The one thing that's nice within Style Guide is you put it all together into one, and don't be afraid that in your SAS, you can refer to say, I like my SQL this way. I have my SAS code refer to my SQL code so that I get the most efficient code that I want and the way that I like it and the way that my team has set up their structure of their coding. So that's the one big benefit I want to say with setting up this prompt guide, is to make sure that we're all in the same line of code, we're doing the same thing, so that when you have to transfer anything from a new partner or hiring a new person, you're able to share the same structure and you guys can all follow the same process. All right, now that we've got a little bit understanding of how I use Copilot and what I kind of did to kind of transform, now I want to go through kind of an AML case study. So for those that are not aware, AML is anti-money laundering. And I am the leader of the data engineering team within there. And we provide the transaction data sets in order for the team to create alerts, identify suspicious activity, along with doing the investigations to see what customer that we may have issues or may not. And what I'm going to go through with this case study, it's an actual real-world case study with the OCC. So for those that are not aware, the OCC is the regulatory body in the US for banking. And I'm going to go through an example that they've asked for and how I work through the process using Copilot. All right, so in this problem, so the OCC came to us and they were like, well, I want you to provide the top 50 customers and count and dollar value for the first fiscal quarter of the year. And from that, I want to make sure that you break it down by each type of cash or each type of transaction category, which it can be either ACH, cash, check, wire. I also, within that report, I want to determine what is the risk rating of the customer itself. Next, I want you to provide some AML information, so around the alert volume. For those that are not aware what alert is, so alert is what the model has gone through and determined as being suspicious. It may not actually be suspicious, but it's something that the model has indicated as this needs further review. And then lastly, our SAR volume. And for those in Canada or elsewhere, it's STR, but for US, it's SAR. In this case, so this is where that alert has actually be determined as suspicious. So in this information, again, they really are looking at our data to see, are all our groups saying the same thing? So is the data team saying the same thing as the investigators? So again, that's why they're kind of asking for this data altogether, because you're kind of wondering why would they want all this? They also want to have this broken down into monthly tabs. So for each type of transaction, they want to have a monthly tab. They also want to have a consolidated overall file. And then they want each one broken out by volume and dollar value. So when you're thinking about this right now, just picture that you're going to be producing a file or a group of files at around 40 different files that are all going to be come together. And how can I make that faster? Because the amount of effort to go in to create this, not only you're going to be dealing with SQL code, you have to build a macro, you have to figure out how you're going to export this out to an Excel data set. You want to make sure that each month goes into a tab within the Excel file. There's a lot of different pieces that are going to go on, and how can Copilot go through this? So before I kind of just want to break down the data itself, just to get a better understanding, because this is going to help you when you're working with Copilot. So what we have is we have our transaction data set. The most key factors are date amount, your transaction ID, and the type of data, because we need to figure out how we're going to break that data up. Next is we want to bring in customer data. We have our name, date of birth, the risk type, and other lines of business. Sometimes we want to have the lines of business to get a better understanding. Is this a wealth management partner? Is this a retail partner? Does the dollar value make sense for the types of transactions they're performing? And then lastly is our AML data, kind of what I talked through before, is we want to know exactly when the suspicious activity happened, how many alerts they may have triggered, how many SARs that kind of filed. And then the one thing to tie it all together, you kind of see in all three, is you have a customer account, because we need to find a way to link all of that data together. So now you have an understanding of the data that you're going to be using. Next is how do we actually go through the steps to create this data? So the first part is we want to find out how we build account-based SQL code or SAS code or whatever kind of code you're looking, how you want to build a dollar base. So now we know we have two codes that we're going to have, and they're going to be repeated. Once we define the code we have, we want to then figure out all the different types of transactions we're going to be dealing with. And again, some of those may be very large volumes, so that's where sometimes you need to make sure that your code is being as efficient as possible, because when you're trying to find the top 50 over 2 billion transactions, it can be cumbersome to actually run that code. So that is one thing too when you're working with your Copilot, to make sure it's pulling exactly how you want it to work. Then finally, we're going to add in, or kind of the next pieces with it is we're going to add on our AML data, other demographic information, because that was a part of the request. And then we're going to develop our looping macro that's going to go through each iteration to create the file, and then finally output the data into a single location, which that we can then zip together. Because I don't know if anyone has dealt with the regulatory bodies. Sometimes they need to have things as simplistic as possible, and to put in an Excel file, that is the only way that they can work through things. So we want to make sure it's easy for them to read as possible. Now that I went through this, could I have done this all in Copilot? I think we'll see next. So if I was going to put this all, and again, I have simplified this for the presentation. Again, I remember I was talking about the context. You can have this all into one single Copilot prompt that would have saved, what I showed before would have taken me a week to put that all together, to make sure everything was kind of working the way I wanted it, looping through. What you can now use is Copilot to kind of go through that same information to produce the same results, to give you the output in a much faster time. So if I was using Copilot, again, what I'm going to talk about next is there are issues with using Copilot, and we're going to go through that. But if I would have put that through Copilot, I could have had this built in a day and a half. Whereas if I was doing it manual and making sure, I probably would have spent a whole week trying to get everything together. So what we run into, and that's what I want to talk about, is we run into issues with our Copilot, or actually our SAS code. We run into errors. So I don't know if anyone is familiar with some of these errors. I know with me, I have a problem with SAS dates. I don't know why, and any application or any tool, it always wants to revert back to the 1970 timeframe, and I do not know how to fix it. And I have started to use Copilot as a way to kind of increase and help the efficiency on working through errors. I do feel like this part is probably the most helpful to me, is working through and having to deal with errors. And so what I mean by having to deal with it, so just think, you have your SAS code in one area, you have the error log in another, and you put that into Copilot, and you refer to it and say, now that you see my logic that I have, Can you then interpret this error that I don't know why it's saying what it's saying? I can't figure out this error. And you can now ask it, and it can give you a detailed explanation of what's actually going through and could be a cause or a problem within your code. On the next one, I just want to kind of go through an example. And again, this one is really basic, but this is going to go through. So I built a PROC SQL. I ran it, but for now I have an error. And I've looked at this code all day, every day, and I don't understand why it keeps on giving me this error. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that code along with the error. I'm going to go to Copilot, and this is what I kind of referred to before, is now you can put that code into Copilot and say, please fix this error. I don't understand why it's doing this. I need to have this turned in as soon as possible, but this error keeps on coming up. And what it's going to do is the one thing that's nice with Copilot, it'll not only explain why the error is happening, but then provide you the fixed syntax of that code. So in this instance, I know I picked a very simple one, and it's just an as is missing within your crate table. But what you have is Copilot's going to go through and say, you are missing the as. This is where it should go, and this is why. Because if you don't have that, it's not able to create the table because it doesn't know that it's doing that. So just think of how you could apply this to huge pieces of code or errors that are happening all over the place. And this is one way that you can, I think, speed up your code development. So kind of going back to the case study, yes, you could send that simple code through and say, this is all the steps I wanted to do. But you do need to make sure that you're actually running the code and working through the issues. And this is one area that I feel Copilot is the most helpful at assisting and help developing that code. Because you can say, this is what I want to do. I can't figure out why the macro keeps on breaking here. You can then go say, Copilot, this is what I have. Can you help me figure out why it's going this way? And could I do something differently? And it will come back with suggestions on this is what you should try. And again, it may not work the first time. That's why you do have your prompt guide. And then what I have kind of learned through some of the newer versions of Copilot, it starts to actually learn what you're doing yourself. And it knows that, well, I see that you're in SAS, and I see that you're trying to convert this to SQL. This is what you may want to try instead of doing this. So through my journey with Copilot, these are some of the use cases that I have used using SAS within Copilot. So a lot of us know that we use multiple codes. So the one things we can have is we can convert SAS to Python. We can convert Python back to SAS. We can convert it to SQL. The one thing I kind of didn't mention before this is, this presentation is built that this could be either sitting in VIA, you could be sitting in 9.4, you could be using multiple tools. You can also use this to try to enhance your new cast logic. If you still don't understand how to use VIA, you can help it to convert this new to the new cast code. Or if you're someone older that is using DS2 code, I never really figured that one out, but I know that's something that you could utilize as well. That's the one benefit with Copilot, because it has the ability to research all of these documents and to try to figure out exactly what you're doing. What you also can do with your scripting is you can use Copilot to help modernize and help reduce redundant logic. So once you have something built, you can say, can you review my logic that I have and help reduce any redundancy or ways that I'm calling, I might have called a column in the first SQL code, but I never use that column again. You can have Copilot go back and say, you referred to this column once, do you still need it anymore? Because if you bring it in, you can help reduce the data size and make your code a little bit more efficient. So that's one where Copilot can go back and say, these are suggestions on what you could do to try to make your code a little more optimized and better. Additionally, and this is kind of one that I have found very helpful. I know there's a lot of things that I said that I've found very helpful. But again, around the coding. But you can take this another step and you can actually have it start writing documents of what the SQL code is. And what I mean by this is you can say, this is all of the columns I use. Can you start building a metadata information about, well, what is the description of the column? What are some of the most frequent used variables within that column? And you can start developing a report that can then be saved. For within the AML department, that is very critical because we use all of this within our models, which are then regulatory scrutinized. And having all of this data together not only helps us when there's a question coming from the model team, but it helps us learn what the issue is. It helps with data quality. There's many things that you can do when you have all of this ability to capture hundreds of lines of code, of documentation that you may have never had the time to spend with because you're always trying to work out this new fire that you need to get rid of. Now you can use Copilot to put together a document of how all the code was used. And then lastly, I really want to preference, sometimes you can trust Copilot. There is other times you may want to review what you're doing. Again, Copilot is going to speed up your code development. But what can happen is it may provide something that is too complex for the situation you're doing. So again, you may want to make sure that Copilot's not going above and beyond, and you may need to tweak it to bring it down and reduce the complexity. Because I've talked with various users, sometimes Copilot will just start putting macros on everything. And again, that might be helpful. It might not be, but sometimes you might want something that's very simple. So again, when you're putting this code together, make sure you test it before you push it into production. Next, Copilot is going to help you improve your code. It's going to make you a better coder. It's going to find things that you never saw before. It's going to help with formatting. But again, with some of our limitations with Copilot, and I'm not talking about one that's built on SAS, but it's one that's used within your organization where it's not directly connected to SAS. It may not know exactly what you're trying to talk about or what you're bringing in, because sometimes you can't bring all of the data into PII information, so you kind of have to only use as what you can, but sometimes it might not understand exactly what you're trying, and you may, if you didn't use the correct verbiage, it may not know what you're trying to ask for. So again, when you're using Copilot, you need to make sure that it has the correct context and know exactly what you're trying to produce, and check to make sure the output is good before you send it off to anyone. So the next piece is, again, Copilot's going to help find ways to produce or enhance your performance. But again, it may provide suggestions that are not possible within your organizations, where you may have a firewall that it doesn't know about, or you may be on a version that's 2 or 3 times lesser than what it suggested you. So again, you may get a good answer, but you have to possibly spend time working with Copilot to say, no, this is the actual version I'm using. Provide me different reasons what could be used within this version, not the most latest and greatest. And when you're using Pilot, I think this is more for all of us that have been coding for a while, is we don't want to get over-reliant on Copilot itself. We really want to use Copilot as an assistant tool. It's not something that we're going to rely on everything. Again, the more reliance you get onto it, the less like you're going to try to find new ways of doing things. So use Copilot, but don't use it for everything. But it can be something that can be as another eyes. So think about it as like a quality insurance. It's always looking to see, are you putting everything together? But use it as eyes. Don't use it as trying to take everything that you're doing all at once, kind of work through it piece by piece. And I think you get the most out of Copilot if you do it that way. And then I mentioned this before, but we want to make sure we customize how we actually have to our style. What I can see issues is sometimes you may try to mimic it towards another style, but then you're not as comfortable with that. You kind of want to have Copilot how you like it instead of have Copilot teach it the way it wants you to learn. So it's kind of a back and forth that you have with Copilot. Again, it's an assistant that will help you do your job faster. It'll help you in instances where you may not have a good understanding of other logic, but you can use it to help enhance that logic. Again, I really feel like this is more of something that's going to help our everyday life in assisting what we're doing instead of taking away our jobs. But I do see the benefit of using Copilot long term. And I do want to thank you all for coming to my presentation. Hopefully you learned a couple things. If you have any questions, let me know, or we can reach.
All right. Before we get to questions, please let's show Chris some appreciation. It's a lot of information, talking for a long time. So thank you, Chris. So yeah, we got plenty of time for questions. So if you just raise your hand, I'll bring the microphone around. And I'll try to remember the order.
Thank you, Christopher. Appreciate you putting this together.
Yeah.
Great information. I'm quite fond of thoroughly documented code. So the question I have is, have you applied user-based and business-based SAS formats for various fields and incorporated that into Copilot? For instance, if you have balances that across the board in the business are formatted in $12 dot whatever. The other point is, if you could go back to the slide that has the documentation, added the flower box at the top. I wanted to ask a question about that.
Was it the style?
It has the code, it's PROC SQL with the documentation at the top. Yeah, keep going back.
Okay.
There
There we go.
That one.
Yep.
So at the top, your table work query for trans actually came from the old, but you're actually creating transaction summary, which is better. I just wanted to point that out.
Oh, yes.
That somehow it pulled in
It did.
your legacy name, which you wanted to change. So anyway,
Well, thank you.
I'm a coder, so I look for these things.
I missed that.
Thank you.
So I guess all of you are kind of aware is I built this whole presentation using Copilot. So kind of some of the slides together, I actually used and said, Copilot, how can I actually present this better to this information to everyone? And I used it to help build some of my icons, to put together that error picture. I really wanted to put the bloopers of how bad it actually went together sometimes. I'm going to go to the error slide just so you guys can. I'm getting there. Hold on, we're almost there. All right, when I actually put together a slide, it created this nice error, like image. And I tried to have it where I put the errors aside. I actually had to delete everything and write it by myself and then paste it into the image. Because what it did was sometimes it started repeating the same ones over and over. Ones that put special characters, the whole thing was all in special characters. I don't even know what it was doing. I had times where it just inserted random images into the actual information, and I had to go and modify that. So Copilot is not there yet, just so if anyone's worried. There's still a long ways, but it can help get you a little bit better at presenting, if that's something that you take out of all this.
Hi, I had a couple questions. One, you were talking about having it learn your style. How
Yep.
did you retain that within Copilot? Does it just remember from question to question, or do you have to like reload your style every time?
I actually built a kind of a file that contained all of the kind of documentation within it. And then within my prompt, I would say to Copilot, please refer to my prompt guide, and then kind of start using that. But what I found with the newer versions of the language models, it starts to learn what you're now doing. So I have kind of adjusted away from that, but I think from a starting out, is you do want to kind of have this document that you refer to every time, and you ask Copilot, say, please read this doc, and then go through what you're asking it to do.
All right. My second one was, you had talked about how Copilot can sometimes make it a little over the top. And I was wondering if if it ever works to tell Copilot, can you dumb this down a bit, or can you make this less complex, and it actually works?
Yeah, there are times when I've worked through it that I said, this is way too much. I need you to kind of go back and apply something that's not as complex. And then, or I actually, if that does happen, I say, can you give me 3 different suggestions on how I could do the code instead of doing this way? So you can kind of go back and say, Copilot, you went too far above and beyond. Can you actually give me other ways that you could do this instead of doing it this way? So hopefully that helps. Yep.
Do you ever find when you start a new prompt or something that it's pulling in, if it's remembering information and pulling it in from your previous data sets or prompts, how do you ensure that it's, you know, I know you're double checking it,
Yeah.
but how do you ensure it doesn't do that?
Yeah, there are times when I have, and that's what I kind of wanted to talk about, when you want to make sure you run the code and review it before you can kind of go in. There are times when you're kind of working with a problem through your workday and you go from one to the next, and then it starts referring to something else. You may have to go back and say, I'm not talking about this anymore, or start a new session just to make sure that everything is aligning to what you have.
Great. Any other questions? I don't see any other hands up. All right. You're going for bonus round. All right. I appreciate that.
So this is just informational. I have run into the case of the January 1, 1960 date, and if any of you have written SAS code, you probably have run into that. So the information is that 0 is January 1, 1960 as a SAS date. And some of you in here have a negative SAS date. Not me, but anyway.
I do.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Going once, going twice. If not, thank you very much for attending and have a great
All
rest
right,
of the day.
thank you.